Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and that was a weird pronunciation of my name. Tekking101, Tekking here, and this is going to be a different kind of discussion video we're going to do this time. Normally how I do discussion videos is I just pick out a single character or maybe a group, as with the Zero Squad, and I just talk about them, you know, their history and everything like that. This time it's not going to be focused primarily on a single character. We're talking about two characters, but we're more focusing on the relationship between these two characters and how it sort of plays out through the series. I am, of course, referring to these two sexy motherfuckers right here, Kisuke Urahara and Sosuke Aizen, and their relationship. And no, not that kind of relationship. You know, that's what Google's for. Type in Urahara x Aizen yaoi and be whisked away to that stuff if you're into it. Maybe I should make that my next fanfiction read-along story time. That would be fun. But no, so I was just thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about the relationship these two characters had and their history together and what ultimately led to the final battle in Fate Karakura Town. And I started thinking that the conclusion to their stories it didn't really seem like a big deal to me. You know, it didn't seem like it was a worthy sort of finish for the confrontation that Urahara and Aizen had, you know, setting up Turn Back the Pendulum. You know, how that happened there, how Urahara basically got screwed over by Aizen, how he was, you know, banished from the Soul Society, how the, you know, Shinji and the others became Vizards, and, you know, Urahara and then kind of becomes on this 100-year quest to kind of avenge his, you know, not just himself, but also his friends that he let down and everything, and trying to take down Aizen. And when it ends in the Fate Karakura Town arc, I don't really feel like it really meant anything, you know what I mean? Because they don't really mention each other throughout the rest of the story. If they do, it's only in passing. They don't interact anymore. Aizen and Urahara don't interact a single time after Fate Karakura, and it just seems like a really weak finish. Mostly because you have these two for a long time on, like, parallel paths. Like, they're both equally intelligent. And there's not a lot of cases. Maybe one might be a little bit passing up the other, but then another one's right behind it. You know, it's like they're right along these paths. And not just intelligence-wise, but also through morality. There's been a lot of theories throughout the Bleach series, you know, especially during those times when we really didn't know a lot about Urahara, that people were thinking Urahara might turn out to be the final villain. After the Fate Karakura Town arc, I think that was pretty much just cemented in that Urahara was a good guy, but I saw those theories well into the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, that Urahara is going to turn out to be the villain at the end of the day, or he's going to turn out to be having evil intentions. Let me tell you something. He didn't turn out that way, but if he wanted to, he could totally do it. He's the kind of guy, just like Aizen, who could fool everybody, you know, into thinking that he's just kind of lighthearted, kind of chill-looking guy, you know, and turns out to be a serious, you know, hard-hitting motherfucker, basically. That could totally go down, and I could buy it. So those were one of those theories where it's like, it didn't happen, but I could totally see it. You could totally see Urahara as a villain. I think all of you could figure out that. And you know what? If Kubo wanted to go that route with it, I would have been fine with it. It would have been a genuine shock to me, but it would make sense. It would make sense. Like, well, yeah, if you're that much more intelligent than everybody else, and if you have the resources to do it, and you can manipulate people, you know? Maybe not the same way Aizen did. Aizen manipulated people through Kyoka Suigetsu a lot of ways, but Urahara was able to manipulate people similarly without the use of a hypnotic sword. He could do so quite easily. So let's talk about their history together. First off, when was Aizen made aware of Urahara? When did these two forces actually meet? Or when did they become aware of each other's existence? Because Aizen, you know, when Ichigo was thinking about Aizen's past, when after he, you know, defeated Aizen, he was sitting there talking to Urahara, and Ichigo's theory about Aizen was just he must have had superior intelligence and superior abilities ever since he was a little kid, and he felt alone and isolated because no one around him could really reach his level. And so that crushing loneliness, he must have aspired to become, you know, something more than that. So I feel like You know, I feel like Aizen had this plan to kind of like overthrow the Soul Society and do the whole thing with the Oaken. I feel like he's had this idea, this plan for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, as long as he's, you know, maybe, you know, became a Soul Reaper and got into his teenage years, around maybe Toshiro's age, if that makes sense. I know age is kind of like, with Shinigami, but you know what I mean. Probably since around that time, maybe Gein's or Toshiro's ages, he, you know, started to come up with these plans and shit in his head. So, then you have Urahara, though, who is on equal intelligence with Aizen. So it might have been the same thing for Urahara. Urahara might have grown up in that same respect, although the difference is, even though they might have had similar intellect and similar potential for their abilities, you know, the difference with Urahara was more, he had like a more carefree nature. Also, he had more friends. He had Yoruichi he grew up with and stuff like that. And maybe the way that he grew up was just in a better way than Aizen. For all we know, Aizen could have been growing up alone in the fucking depths of the Rukon district, just like, you know, everyone around him is just, you know, completely like, oh my god, I can't believe these people, I'm so much better than them, what the hell is this crap? You know, and Urahara might have had a better upbringing. So when did these two meet each other? Well, the first time they meet on screen is during Turn Back the Pendulum, whenever Urahara is made the 12th Division captain after Kiryu Hikifune is, she's promoted to Squad Zero. You have that captain meeting, and Yamamoto's like, alright, bring on the newbie. He probably said it a little bit more eloquently than that. And then Urahara opens the big, huge doors to the captain meeting, and he's just like, hey guys, how you doing? Urahara Kisuke here. So he's a lot more humble. Aizen's more arrogant. But, like I said, both of those could be played off as just acts to manipulate people. I could totally buy that. Well, anyway, then you have that scene where Aizen's just, he was the lieutenant, he was sitting behind Shinji, just kind of stares over to Urahara, just like, So I wonder if that's kind of like the, so Urahara became the captain of Squad 12, I see, Or if it's more of just like a, who the fuck is this dork? You know, either way, I don't know. But I think at that moment, though, if that's the first time they truly did meet each other, that's the moment where Aizen understood, like, this is, I need to watch this guy. This guy's, something's up with him. So, remember, Turn Back the Pendulum was actually included a time skip of itself. Turn Back the Pendulum, the way it starts, goes back 110 years when Urahara becomes the captain of Squad 12. And then it skips ahead another 10 years to when all the shit went down with Aizen and the holification of the visors and all that shit. That's when shit really goes down. So, in those 10 years, Urahara sets up shop in the 12th Division, starts up the research and development. He was originally before he was the captain of Squad 12, he was the third seat of the 2nd Division, and he was in charge of, like, the internment camp, essentially what it was, the Maggot's Nest, where you take all of the troublemakers in the Soul Society, those that could become threats, like Maori and Akon, and imprison them in the Maggot's Nest, and, yeah. But that makes me wonder, like, he's always been an intelligent guy, so maybe it wasn't, I don't know if he was doing experiments and shit before then, or if it wasn't until he really got into the captaincy and he was able to start up the research and development division that he really let his intelligence flourish, you know, because I feel like to arrive at the conclusion of the Hogyoku and shit like that, this is high-level shit, I don't know if you could just arrive at that in, like, 10 years. He was probably working on the theories and stuff for a while there. Right, so, that's where we get to here, and then you have the whole moment where Urahara and Aizen confront each other in the forest, and Aizen gets the one-up on Urahara. He's the one that actually, you know, in that situation, he wins. Like I said, maybe Urahara was a little bit too naive, too much trusting. Meanwhile, Aizen is really intelligent as Urahara, but he's also very arrogant. So he sees that he wins against Urahara, essentially, and then just walks off, you know, escapes from Tessai and Urahara, and then frames Urahara for the holification of the visors, and then that gets Urahara banished from the Soul Society. He, of course, manages to escape, but he escapes the world of the living. So, after learning that backstory and Turn Back the Pendulum, the fandom, of course, understands more about Aizen and Urahara, but they're also just like, this is what it comes down to. This is what we're building to. Urahara has spent 100 fucking years in exile, trying to figure out a way to not only reverse holification and figure all this shit out, but he's also been figuring out a way to get the one-up on Aizen, to finally defeat him. Let me ask you a question. It's a simple question. Why did Urahara plant the Hogyoku in Rukia at the beginning of this series? Simple question. I'm just gonna take a little stroll and a drink. It makes no sense when you think about it. You see Rukia Kuchiki here, you know, she's running from the law, from the Soul Society. She gave her powers to a human. That's a big no-no. And then Urahara comes stomping in. He's like, hey there, girl that is wanted by the Soul Society and is probably going to be found out and dragged back to the one place that I don't want this magical orb to go. Here you go. And then hides it in Rukia's Gigai. Of course... Well, not her Gigai, her actual soul. He implants it in her chest. So, she gets found out. She gets taken back to the Soul Society. And that is what sets up pretty much the entire fucking story. Eventually, of course, that's the goal with Aizen. Aizen's looking for the fucking Hogyoku. So you mean now you could say maybe Urahara was hiding it in Rukia so that Aizen couldn't find it, but think about that. You know, worst case scenario, Aizen comes to the world of the living and has to confront Urahara to get the Hogyoku. Like, that would just be a straight up fight. And like, Urahara and Aizen straight up fighting, that would be awesome. And I don't know, this was before we had God Aizen or anything like that. That was just getting the Hogyoku. So it makes no sense why he would do that. Except if that was his plan all along. Remember, Urahara knew all about Ichigo. He knew about Ichigo. He was friends with Isshin. So he sees Rukia giving powers to Ichigo and shit, and he's thinking maybe this will be the chance to take him down. I'm going to take that motherfucker down. I'm going to put this Hogyoku, the one thing he wants, I'm going to put that in Rukia, he's going to get his hands on it, and then that's going to open up the way for, you know, Ichigo to get stronger, and then that's going to open up all these potentials. Remember, Urahara's a guy, this seems like impossible, but Urahara's the guy that thinks 1,000 steps ahead here. Okay, so he planned this whole thing out. You know, fake Karakura, there's going to be a war and shit. This is going to be all leading to the point where I can take this motherfucker down. Because one of the things that Urahara needed to happen is he needed Aizen to expose his true colors. He needed the Soul Society understand that he is the bad guy, not Urahara. He needed that to happen first in order to properly defeat him, in order for him to get his comeuppance. So he's like, if I set the baits and Aizen takes the baits, then all this ruckus in the Soul Society, he's gonna get found out, and he did. And then, okay, so then you understand Aizen is the villain, not Urahara. I actually question at this point, by the way, that maybe Yamamoto and Urahara might have had some understandings after this point, because remember, Urahara was the one that helped out the Soul Society with those pillars to transfer fake Karakura. So it wasn't shown on screen, but I hope that Yamamoto picked up the phone and called Karakura Town, like, hey, Urahara, remember back when, all those holification experiments happened and we thought that it was you and we banned you from the entire Soul Society? Yeah, well, we understand that we fucked up and we could use your help now. Yeah, so that was part of the plan. They had to let Urahara had to get Aizen found out, and then he was. And then maybe he worked on the second part of the plan after that. Maybe he didn't have every single thing planned out from beginning of the story to the end of the fake Karakura arc, but I think that makes a lot of sense for him. So, yeah, and like I said, their intelligence is very similar. Also, you might wonder why I'm not including Maori here, why I'm not including Maori in this, like, this trio of intelligence, why it's a duo. Maori is very intelligent, but I think he always comes up short for two reasons. Number one, he is way too emotionally unstable. Way too much. He gets too excited. He gets too... whenever someone hurts him or hurts his abilities as a scientist or damages his pride, he takes it way too fucking far. And I think at the end of the day, that really holds him back. Another thing is his... I don't want to say his experimentation is too taboo, considering what Aizen was doing and Urahara were doing with the Hogyoku, but his experimentation was not too... He was really focused a lot on becoming a god himself in terms of creating life. you know, like creating Nemu. That was like his goal, I think. And meanwhile, so that's what aspect of a god Maori wanted to be, like a creator god. Meanwhile, you have Aizen, who wanted to just be the god that wanted to reshape the world. He wasn't really interested in creating so much as reshape. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think that's one of the reasons. And, you know, Urahara and Urahara and Aizen are above Maori. Maori just kind of comes up short. Oh, and let's talk about that Hogyoku problem really quick here. Remember, Urahara is not the one that created the Hogyoku first. Aizen was. Aizen arrived at the conclusion before Urahara. Like I said, parallel lines, very similar in intelligence. They probably almost arrived at the same time, but Aizen was indeed first. However, the reason that he wanted Urahara's Hogyoku is for that Hogyoku to evolve, for evolution to take place, fear is necessary, to know that there's another entity similar to you out there. So that's why he was trying to get his hands on Urahara. But Aizen, you know, he created the Hogyoku first. Let's remember that. Right. Okay. So you have two master plans going on at the same time here. You have Urahara's 100-year grudge against Aizen, trying to one-up him, and then you have Aizen's probably multiple 100 years planned to take over the Soul Society, overthrow that, become, you know, create an Oaken, and then become God, or kill the Soul King and then take his reins and doing whatever he wanted to do there. So this all comes to a head in Fate Karakura. That's when they confront each other. You have the moment where Urahara shows up on the battlefield. He's looking awesome. He shoots those Ryatsu handcuffs into Aizen. He just spams a shit ton of Bakudos on Aizen, and then he launches a level 91 Hado, when in reality all he was trying to do was place these handcuffs on him, but even that was a facade. What he was really trying to do in that situation was shooting that seal into Aizen, the cross seal, that actually ended up sealing them all together. But immediately after that whole scuffle there, after he breaks out of the handcuffed explosion and he's like in his chrysalis form, you know, he fights against Urahara and Isshin and Yoruichi, and then he becomes into his second god form, and then he just kind of takes out Urahara. He just kind of dishes out, you know, and then they're just kind of off-screened. And then it's up to Ichigo to finish him off. And then Ichigo goes into the, you know, they go into the Seirete, you know, Ichigo trains with Isshin and Zangetsu and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, Ichigo goes all Mugetsu and cuts Aizen in half in god form. And then finally Urahara shows up at the very end of that fight. And he's like, okay, it was because of Ichigo fighting you so hard and so diligently that that the seal that I shot into you was finally trying to take effect. That makes me think that a lot of people just thought in that situation, well, okay, in that situation, Aizen was stronger than Urahara because he, like, one-shot him off-screened. But I like to think that perhaps this is another thing that Urahara planned for. At that point in the fight, he was maybe aware of the potential inside Ichigo. He was aware of maybe what he could do and what that would happen, and he led it to him. He led it to Ichigo to try to, you know, deal the finishing blow on Aizen, because we didn't even see Urahara go into his Bankai or anything like that. I don't know how well Baraki Benehime would have helped against Aizen, but I think it would have done some pretty good damage. I think that would have left some openings there you could have done, so your seal could have taken effect. I don't know. But I think he just maybe let it up to Ichigo in that point, because I think he really had trust in Ichigo that he could accomplish it, that he could transcend to that level as well. But would Aizen be straight up stronger than Urahara? I don't know. If we're talking about his, like, final form, when he, like, combined with his sword and he had, like, the skull face going on, I don't know about that. But I do feel that Urahara might have let himself get beat down in that fight. If it was, like, in just second form Aizen, I think Urahara could maybe have put up a little bit more of a fight than that. But he realized, you know, maybe I should just better suit this to Ichigo, because Ichigo, in terms of raw Ryatsu, in terms of power alone, yeah, Ichigo has pretty much a lot of main characters beat in just the reservoir of power that he has and the potential that's within him. So there's that, yeah. But I think that I don't think you should look at it so simply as just, you know, oh, Aizen is just objectively stronger than Urahara because he's God and Urahara just got, you know, one-shotted in that panel. I think that's rather unfair to him. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about these because then after that we don't get any more interaction with them. We don't. They might mention each other passively, but Urahara and Aizen never have another interaction throughout the entire story. You know, and I feel that's kind of just a weak finish into this kind of like rivalry. Oh, that's another word I can't pronounce. Rivalry. Sure. That has been going on throughout the story, that has been, you know, Urahara since the start of Bleach. You know, he's the man of mystery. And then you get to Aizen, like, whoa, he managed to fool the entire Seirete. And then turn back the pendulum, like, okay, that's what happened between the two. And you really get a sense for this. Like, this is going to culminate in something huge. Like, Urahara is going to get his fucking payback, and it's going to be beautiful. And he does, sort of. In fact, it was very satisfying, I will say. It was very satisfying to see Aizen, you know, regress into a little child having a freaking temper tantrum as he's being sealed, and Urahara's just standing there all cool and collected, you know, freaking battle damage, the scars and the bruises. He's missing his hat, and he's just staring at him like, I see. So you saw it then, the Soul King. And Aizen's like, I wanted to be the king of the world. I wanted to be king of the pirates. It didn't work. Damn you, Urahara. That was pretty cool to see him regress into that freaking, like, whining mode. That was nice. Urahara kind of got a one-up on him there. You just know Urahara the whole time Aizen was bitching as he was being sealed. Urahara's just thinking, I win, bitch. Fuck you. But it didn't go anywhere more than that. Maybe that's what Kubo intended. Maybe Kubo was like, yep, this is where their story ends. I just feel like there could have been a little bit more to it than that. There could have been a longer, prolonged fight between Urahara and Aizen that could have had maybe a more satisfactory ending. Ichigo could have still went badass Mugetsu and cut him in half. We could have still had that. But I think the fight with Urahara and Aizen, we could have had more dialogue. We could have had more exchanges there. Maybe foreshadowing some more stuff in the story. But that was their end. So I wanted to ask you guys, I guess, in the comments below, talk about, you know, what did you feel about the relationship between these two characters? How did you think this was going to end? Did you think it was going to be more like a straight up just balls out fight? Or because they're so intelligent, it was going to be like, it's like, oh, you thought I did this, but really I did this. Oh, but you thought I did this, but I planned against that. Oh, but you planned against that. Like, it was just going to be a massive fucking circle jerk on which one planned better than the other one. Actually, that's what I was kind of expecting, you know? But that's just not what we got. It ended with basically Aizen being sealed, Ichigo doing most of the grunt work, and then Urahara being, of course, you know, realized that he wasn't the one. He got freed of all of his charges, and still, I guess, prefers to live in the world of the living just because. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope to see some cool discussions below. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Later, guys.